Kia ora, hello, it's Friday the 24th of July. I'm Philip Duncan. Thank you for joining me as we take a look at the weekend weather and the outlook for most of next week. We've got this cold change coming through. On the satellite imagery, you can see these sort of three bands of cloud. Each one, the airflow behind it gets progressively colder. We've got fairly mild conditions around the North Island for this time of the year at the moment, and in some parts of the South Island as well. But the colder stuff is on its way, and as we go from a milder airflow to the sub-antarctic one, that's why we're seeing some of those thunderstorms coming through. Please download the Weather Watch app so you can view the new lightning tracker that we've got. But you can see plenty of thunderstorms here offshore. Now, some of these thunderstorms, as they move in across the country over the next 12 to 24 hours, going into Saturday, could produce localized tornadoes. Very small, but they can still cause problems. And even if you don't get that, you can just get a squally burst of wind. So there could be some power outages. We've got a wind map for you soon showing what's going on around the upper North Island, but there could be some windy weather, especially associated with some of these heavier downpours that are coming on through. So 3 o'clock this afternoon, the areas that you see in green around the western side of the North Island, those are the areas with that thunderstorm risk and potentially some localised wind damage. We're also seeing heavy rain on the west coast, and as the polar boundary moves northwards, that rain will start to fall as snow along the mountains and ranges. As we go through tonight, the colder southerly then starts to arrive in the South Island. Now, the snow level, I think, has actually gone up a little bit in the last 24 hours as far as forecasts are concerned. We're seeing snow in the forecast for places like Lumsden in northern Southland, but not so much in Gore. Now, Lumsden's about 200 metres above sea level. Gore is less than 100 metres above sea level. So we are going to see some lower level snow flurries, but not necessarily having a huge impact on the region, which is some good news. In the North Island, though, eastern areas, and in fact some parts of the East and South Island, are mostly dry going through this afternoon. Here is the air pressure map for this evening. So we've got high pressure well north of New Zealand, closer to Tonga and Fiji. Low pressure, bit of low pressure around the South Island and around south of Tasmania, but the main low itself right down near Antarctica. But lower pressure, which you see in the darker shading, that affects the whole country. Northwesterly winds still around as we go into this evening for the North Island, but the South Island, that southerly change is working its way northwards, and northerly winds around the Chatham Islands. So let's kick off with the 7-day rainfall thanks to NEDAP. Here is Friday's rainfall. You can see some heavier falls coming through on the west coast and a little bit around Mount Taranaki. Let's animate now the next 7 days ahead, and you'll see heavier falls around the western side of the country. Not very much though, coming in for the eastern side of New Zealand. And by the time we're at Thursday next week, 7 days from now, 100 millimetres to 150 millimetre possible around some parts of the west coast. And obviously that is falling as heavy snow on the mountains as well. So noon Saturday, it's a cold day. The polar boundary actually goes up over Northland during the early hours, and then around about sunrise, it starts to go further southwards back towards Auckland. But either way, it's a cold day. Still getting those heavy squally showers, bursts of wind. As I say, possibly a small tornado could pop up here and there around the North Island. Keep in mind, a lot of the North Island is rural, so just because you got the chance of one doesn't mean you'll get one, but the risk is there as we transition away from the milder airflow, and now we've got the much colder one. So I mentioned the snow risks in the South Island. As you see here at lunchtime Saturday around Southland, not a lot of moisture around. So yes, you might get a snow flurry, but it's not likely to add up to very much in most locations during the day. The wet weather moves further up the South Island, the colder airflow with it. So we'll see some snow around the ranges and the hills as well as we go through Saturday afternoon. And then at night time, that's when the snow level lowers around the North Island. But as I mentioned at the start, I think it's gone up a little bit from where it was a couple of days ago, but still expecting snow around the central plateau, around the mountains and ranges of the North Island, from about Coromandel Peninsula, Waikato, southwards. Here's the wind gust map for 3 o'clock. So this is Saturday afternoon. The areas in the purple here around the western side of Waikato and certainly through the Auckland region, Coromandel Peninsula, Great Barrier Island, and some parts of Northland. You're into that area where the wind gusts are between 75 and over 100 kilometres an hour. That's severe gale once it's over 90. And so that's why we're expecting a few power cuts just here and there in some locations, depending on how strong those winds get across Saturday itself. Then the winds ease. So Sunday morning, look at the frost risk map or below zero map for the South Island. And then we go to Monday. That's the most widespread we've seen the frosts go this year. So we expect frosts not only up to the Waikato region, but going into Auckland and potentially some parts of Northland as well on Monday morning. So here is Sunday though, getting back to the weekend. So we've got the colder airflow still stuck over the top of the North Island around Auckland, Coromandel Peninsula. Small area of low pressure in the mix there. That's going to put a bit more moisture in. So it's going to feel cold. You know, the added moisture in the atmosphere makes it colder around the sort of central upper part of the North Island. Further southwards, it's a drier, colder airflow. So yes, the snow level lowers on Sunday in some locations, but it's quite dry around many areas. Those southerly winds now also starting to move in towards the Chatham Islands. You've got a small area of low pressure nearby for you. So a bit of wet weather around the top half and the eastern side of the North Island. Most other areas are dry or mainly dry. Now let's go into next week. So the shape of the next high pressure zone out here over the Tasman Sea and low pressure out to the east of us makes the winds go a little more straight line southerly. So that means we've still got showers, possibly in Wellington, but more so around Wairarapa, coastal parts of Hawke's Bay, Tararua, up towards northern Hawke's Bay, where I think it gets clipped a wee bit more. Then it's dry inland. So you saw the frost risk map. It depends on these winds that you see fading out as we go through the Sunday night period and also Monday night as well. But it gets colder up around Northland on Monday. Cold southeasterlies for the Chatham Islands and a few showers there. Light winds for most of the South Island, but a slight westerly actually lifts the temperatures up a wee bit around Southland. On Tuesday, those winds tilt more northwesterly. So again, temperatures aren't as low as you might expect following a cold snap like this. Coldest weather will actually remain on the eastern side of the North Island, still getting showers around Wairoa and Nuhaka and places like that around northern parts of Hawke's Bay. A couple of showers might make it up around Gisborne. Fairly dry around the Chatham Islands, but cloudy periods and a cold wind blowing through for you. But high pressure is moving in towards us. By Wednesday, it's over the North Island. So light winds, frosts, fog patches start to return. But from about Wellington southwards, you get those northwesterly winds picking up and becoming stronger as the next cold change starts to arrive with rain over on the west coast. And by Thursday, that front moves up the South Island, spills over a little bit into Tasman and to Nelson. A few showers coming in Taranaki down to about Horowhenua and Wellington, Porirua side of it. And westerly winds carry on around the lower part of the South Island, but it does get a wee bit colder for you. So a bit of changeable weather on the way, but it's going to be a cold weekend. As I say, keep an eye on those lightning strikes around. Download the Weather Watch app. You can see the lightning in there. There's a free map, or you can upgrade to get real-time alerting. Have yourselves a great weekend. I'll see you again on Monday. Our video on Monday will be a bit later in the day, more likely in the mid-afternoon rather than around lunchtime due to some travel that we've got at the moment. So see you on Monday. Have a great weekend.